Okay, I think this may become a new meta. What do you think? Is this the end? Nope. Wow, that's the biggest lag. Oh, this is a pretty small area. This may not end well for me. Well, I cleared the ritual. Hey guys, so finally I have a build worth showing, worth talking about, but this is not a final version of this build, and I'm saying this for newer players. Don't think that what you are seeing here is like the final version and the best version. This is by far not the best version. This is just what I come up with, and I don't have enough currency to take this to the next level. And I think someone who has more experience with mana stacking builds in PoE 2 and has more currency is gonna be able to take this and absolutely blast through maps. So this build is using the Earthbound staff as a main way of dealing with monsters. And this build works extremely well in breaches, in rituals, in very high densely packed areas. There are some maps where it struggles with just because of the map layout is not the best. I would say the best map layouts are kind of smaller maps, smaller indoor maps with like tighter corridors and smaller rooms. That way Spark can just bounce off walls easy, and the enemies are going to be more tightly packed into those corridors, into those rooms. And I still have not figured out how to deal with bosses. I pretty much am skipping bosses. I don't want to. It is possible to kill bosses with this build, but it's just way too risky right now, and I am not tanky enough. With this version, this is just a pure clear speed build, although you can't even call this speed because my run speed is very slow. So this is another thing that you would have to figure out how to improve. I only have 16% movement speed right now with my 20% movement speed boots. Each time a shocked enemy dies, it creates a new spark. And that spark can kill more than one enemy, shock, kill that enemy, and proc more sparks. And those sparks get created not from the player. Normally you would cast a spark from the player position, but this one casts spark from the location where the enemy died. Now I'm actually proccing spark twice. Because of Killjoy gloves. For a very long time I was using the other gloves, Kitoko's current, that allowed me kind of to map safer, which was making my lightning damage able to electrocute enemies. So Spark would just pass through enemies, even if it doesn't kill, the enemies would just get crowd control, staggered, and then it would be easier to deal with. However, with the Killjoy gloves, I feel like it's so much more fun seeing so many sparks flying around. Killjoy gloves essentially has one negative and one positive. The positive is that on kill effects happen twice. That includes all the recover mana on kill, recover life on kill, which I currently have 8% because of this, and a lot of recover mana on kill, but also it procs spark twice, because trigger spark skills on killing a shocked enemy happens twice as well. However, the negative is that life flasks do not recover life, but while mapping that's kind of fine, and if I really need to I can unequip the gloves, use the life flask, let it heal, and then put them back on. But I understand this is far from ideal, and that's why I'm saying that I have not figured out how to deal with bosses with this build. The main setup that I have is ball lighting, just to be able to use lightning warp onto ball lighting, because I need enemies to be shocked when they die. And when you use ball lighting with lightning warp, it creates shocked areas, like pretty big zone of shocked areas. Now actually not sure what my damage on the spark is, because it's like very buggy. In here, this spark, I don't even see the damage, like it's showing complete nonsense here, just absolute nonsense. But essentially you want spark to have enough damage, to have enough chance to shock, to have enough projectile speed, enough duration, and this is Archmage build. I'm not sure, there's gonna be an announcement couple hours after posting this video. Not sure what's gonna be announced, maybe balance changes, maybe something will change about this build as well in the future. I will try to update the description in this video, maybe the title as well, if something completely changes for this build, because I feel like this could become a meta build, one of the meta builds, because you don't even need to spend time casting, you just run through enemies and sparks going everywhere. we kill more enemies, we create more sparks. Another problem is you have to get enough mana recovery. There's no way you're gonna be able to sustain mana with just normal recovery. You have to get mana on kill. You can get that on jewels. On the passive tree, I only found one node which I did anoint. Siphon recover 2% mana on kill, and then on jewels you can get 2% mana on kill, 1%, 2%. You do want more than I currently have, I believe, 6 or 7%. You want more because Archmage adds an extra a bit more than 5% of your maximum mana to each skill. So each spark costs whatever it costs plus an additional 5% of your maximum mana. So all it takes is like fewer than 20 enemies and you would be out of mana like instantly. Until you get enough recover mana on kill, you constantly keep running out of mana. The problem is that I also need tankiness. Cannot really go with Mind Over Matter unless you get enough recover mana on kill, even more than enough. Otherwise you would just instantly die. Stacking life is kind of bad. So you also need like these things, damage taken from mana before life. Sadly it's kind of hard to obtain those. There's what, 16% here, and then there's another 8% here. Because this one is not what I thought it is. Reading is important. This is damage taken at occupies mana, which is not really needed for this. You don't want to be taking damage. In fact, if you're taking damage, then you kind of messed up already. So I actually refunded from these nodes and trying to also get damage taken from mana before life on jewels. But getting this modifier plus recover mana on kill is very expensive. That's why I'm saying that in order to optimize this build, you would want those two modifiers on like 6-7 jewels. Well, actually you don't necessarily need 7 jewels with 2% recover mana on kill. You want around 8% recover mana on kill, because spells also have like a very high base mana cost. If I turn off Archmage, Lighting, let's say, has 148 mana cost without Archmage. With Archmage it is 300 for Lighting. I'm not sure what the cost is for Spark, because like I said, this is all bugged. When it comes for this stuff, level 20, you would want level 20 Spark. I'm not sure if that's actually possible to get. I tried to buy a bunch of these uniques and corrupt them, but it never added or removed the level from the implicit Spark. But instead I got +1 to lighting spell skills. You would also want quality. Quality would produce even more projectiles. As a base, you probably should have 13 or 14 projectiles per Spark. So level 19 gem still only has 4 supports. I assume level 20 gem itself would have another support, but also I'm not entirely sure what else would I add damage wise. This is, by the way, a Storm Weaver using elemental storms, but they are kind of bad because we cannot crit, and this build is scaling crit damage. As a Storm Weaver, I took this just for more mana sustain, although I'm not sure if I really need that mana sustain. When it comes to single target, I assume would never run out of mana the way it is right now. Maybe if you use Mana Tempest, that adds quite a lot of mana cost, but naturally it recovers pretty quickly. Previously I had this node, Rain Dancer. It's pointless, you don't want this. The elemental storms are really bad, but they do help a bit. I feel like they do help a bit, and just enough to finish off shocked enemies. Sometimes if Spark does not. But one thing why I kept them is that when I replaced these gloves, I had no way of crowd controlling enemies anymore, and I did add a support to enable them to electrocute enemies, which allows those lightning storms to still build up electrocution. It's not very quick, but it does help from time to time, and otherwise just get double shock. For bossing, I still don't know. Probably would want to weapon swap into something. Currently I just have weapon swap to enable blink, so I need more spirit, and that way I can kind of blink out of danger. Maybe it would be better to have some sort of single target setup on a weapon swap, but you would probably also want to swap the gloves as well. This is also Eldritch Battery, that way I can get... I'm actually not sure what's the most efficient way of stacking mana, and I don't know how people get like 6k mana with some more min-maxing on gear, getting more energy shield which gets converted into mana, and for example this could have more mana or as a modifier and more energy shield. Same for this, maybe on this as well, and that's it. Where else can I get a lot more mana? I can get just a bit more mana. Of course you can also stack soul cores with percent increased mana, but how do you take from 3000 mana to like 5000 mana? If you could do that, maybe it would even be better to run pure Mind Over Matter, but you would definitely have to overcap the percent of mana on kill. Otherwise, in some cases I'm still running out of mana, which is very weird. And for single target, I find it really nice to use Mana Flare. This setup is not ideal, but I'm using Orb of Storm because I can just drop it, kind of prepare before the fight. It's very dangerous to start the fight when nothing is dying. If some stuff is dying, you're probably gonna clear out everything without problems, except after death mechanics. Those are just the main killers. So Orb of Storm basically drop it next to like a rare and hope that triggers the mana flare, which does a lot of damage. Mana flare is 20% of your current mana as fire damage, which I believe can also crit. But also again, I cannot see the mana flare damage, it doesn't show up in here. So I'm not sure if mana flare is doing really good damage or just looks like it's doing good damage. As for the rest of my items, I only have 2 unique items. The staff, which is a core part of the build, and then Killjoy gloves, which you could replace if you don't really need that many sparks. If you have enough damage, replace with these, which would add tankiness. Crowd control is really nice, but you could also go for more mana, I guess. Otherwise, I have +2 to all spells amulet. Got lucky with the +1 to lighting spell skills staff corruption. And the rest is just trying to get energy shield, life, mana, and resistances. 202 mana on a ring. Sadly, it's only level 61, you know, and I'm level 87, so this could be higher. The other ring is 175 mana. I'm not sure how you could optimize this, but I am pretty sure that someone who knows about the mana builds and played mana builds a lot, especially with Spark Archmage, could figure out how to take this to a next level. I usually tend to just kind of figure out the mechanics and leave the min-maxing for those who have the currency. Because I only have 2 divines and 1 good jewel is like over 1 divine, sometimes 2 divines, so I cannot really afford to min-max this build. I actually don't have any written guides or a saved passive tree, so you're gonna have to kind of copy this. For the jewels, like I said, recover mana on kill and if possible get damage taken from mana before life. Unless you can figure out some other defensive layer. Otherwise, crit damage, crit chance is important. Lighting penetration, actually previously I was using the Beacon of Aziz or whatever it's called. In PoE 1, ignoring enemy resistances is massive, but in PoE 2 it feels like it's not as good, and getting a bit of lighting penetration and replacing the amulet for +2 just felt so much better. One more thing, you may actually try adding cast on shock or cast on crit, but that would be even more mana consumption. And I tried using cast on shock with the lighting warp. I thought that maybe it's just gonna auto teleport me, but it doesn't really work very well. An enemy has to be kind of primed for lighting warp, or you have to use ball lighting, and I tried using ball lighting with lighting warp as well in the same setup. It just wasn't really performing at all. I'm not sure about that, but maybe for single targets you could use cast on shock or cast on crit for extra damage. But again, that requires quite a lot of spirit, and I don't have enough spirit, but you could definitely get enough spirit for that setup as well. Now for the other skills, for the spark, I'm using considered casting just for more damage, then +1 lighting skills. I'm actually not sure what support gems are the best, but this is, after experimenting, this is what I end up with in the end. Rising Tempest, because elemental storms also contribute to this. For each different skill used recently also contributes to that. So you pretty much don't need to worry, you pretty much always have 36% more damage from this. And then Conduction for more chance to shock. This is also important to have enough chance to shock, because if you're killing enemies but you're not shocking, then it's not gonna like chain react. And if you're shocking but you don't have enough damage, it's also bad. I wanted to quit this build so many times. I wanted to give up because it just was not performing. So it does have some growing pain if you try to level this up. I don't think I can give you an advice. It was a painful experience to level through, and I didn't really die that many times. I got 41 deaths right now, and I'm level 87, so it's not that bad, but it was kind of frustrating when I get stunned or something happens, like I'm not able to quickly do this to initiate a chain reaction, or I do this and then I immediately die because none of the enemies die and they just hit me hard enough to kill me. Next, the elemental storms, I pretty much just added like utility. More AoE, more skill effect duration, electrocution, and the cooldown reduction. Currently it's 3.85 second cooldown. Lighting warp is also a magnitude of shock. Crit chance, I'm not sure if this is a really good idea, but you do most damage on crit, and you do just want to make sure that you crit on the first hit essentially. Because if you don't crit and kill enemies in the first hit, very likely we're gonna hit you really hard. But you could figure out something else. Unleash also works really well with multiple Balightings. You hit multiple times. I tried with just one Balighting and one Lighting Warp and it did not feel good. And the Balighting is linked to more cast speed to kind of cast it faster, acceleration for more projectile speed because otherwise it's traveling very slowly, and Scatter Shot for more balls. Orb of Storm, Mana Flare, and Elemental Focus just for damage, because what else do you add to this? Conductivity I do not even use, to be honest. You could probably replace Conductivity with something else. Archmage, Mana Regeneration, and Recover Life on Kill. This is Recover Life on Kill is super important because I have no other way to recover my life while using Killjoy gloves. You could use Eternal Youth and just wait 4 seconds, let your life to start recharging, but in the middle of the fight you cannot really do that. The Mana Tempest is also really nice, but I pretty much never use it because like enemies are dying all the time without me doing anything, and if I have to stop and try to kill enemies, something already went wrong. Because even rares should be dying before you even pretty much see them. But it is with less cost, not sure if it's really important. Premeditation is important, and this gives Culling Strike because it empowers all their skills. Too bad I cannot see my spark damage. Let's say Lighting Warp, 17,000, not DPS damage. And when I activate this, it goes to 21. So yeah, it does add quite a lot of damage. I'm not running Mana Remnants, and I don't think that it's needed. The mana consumption is so fast, so quick, that this will do nothing unless you want to use it against bosses maybe. But I don't think that I would run out of mana against bosses. Again, for bossing you would probably want some other setup. Sadly there's no Writhing Jar like there is in PvE1. There's no way to create enemies to kill shocked enemies against the boss. And I tried against Frostwall. You can shock Frostwall, but it doesn't count as a kill, sadly. I don't know if there's any way to proc on kill attacks against bosses, against single enemy. Probably there is not. From the passive tree, what else is important? Pretty much just getting crit, mana regen, some damage. Okay, there's something important. This one gives chain, just one additional chain, 100%, so you don't want pierce. Get enough jewel sockets, get some Lighting Penetration. You do want enough shock chance and shock magnitude because it doubles the shocks. Oh yeah, I am getting a bit of skill effect duration here for spark, and projectile speed here for also spark and for ball lighting. And some mini mind over matter nodes here. This character was one of my fastest leveling characters going through the campaign, managed to do it in 10 hours, which is still twice longer than PvE1 campaign. So I don't really want to recommend like a leveling way. I don't really know, I just power through essentially, just tough it out and power through. May feel bad until it starts working like completely. It either works very well or it doesn't work enough. That's pretty much it. Hopefully we're not gonna nerf this build after I found a build that I like doing. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.